Greetings to all of humanity. It's really a joy. It's a pleasure. It's my honor as usual to be greeting you and always bringing this message of emancipation to you, whereby I'm pointing you to look no other place but to look inwardly to discover that your real identity is your divinity. That's the reason why today I want to speak to you concerning my 11/11 experience. And when I speak of 11/11, I'm speaking about the 11th month and the 11th day. Okay? Now, I would have previously written in a book called The Secret Vagina about my 11/11 experience. But this experience of which I'm speaking of is slightly different in terms of the one I wrote in the book is about the birth from above, okay? And this one is just another confirmation of what I would have experienced. And this one that took place the 11th month and 11th day actually is just a continuation. Okay, now prior to that, someone who lives in England who has been following this message of self-realization and been following my channel for a very long time. As a matter of fact, when I would have just started, and I believe it was less than a year since I would have started when the person started following me. Sometime in this year, she reached out to me and was telling me that she had a dream whereby she saw like the policemen and so on. They like had me arrested and was beating me and really like abusing me and so on. Like, they were sharing, a lot of blows on me and so on. But in spite of all of that, I wasn't giving in and I wasn't giving up and so on. So I believe, if my memory serves me right, that I explained to her that it had to do with the crucifixion and the rejection of the Christ, because I know I would have come into my Christ consciousness and would have had the highest experience that anyone can experience in this life, okay? And I know that I am the living book, and I'm explaining from the written book. So when you come to Christ, you'll also come to realize that you are the living book, okay? And you're just fulfilling the written book. So, as I was saying, I explained that to her. And I told her we would watch the dream because everything that she says, it would happen, but it would not happen outwardly because it would happen inwardly. And as you know, I always teach that the Bible addresses the human mind and must be interpreted psychologically, that the Bible is not literal, neither is it secular history, and that the Bible have no reference to anyone who existed thousands of years ago to any actual event that would have taken place on earth thousands of years ago. I always teach you that from the beginning to the ending of the Bible, it's a great psychological drama, and it's all have to do with the human psyche. Which brings me now to reveal to you that this dream that this woman would have brought to me concerning myself, how the 11th month and the 11th day is when it really took place in my life. And I want to say to you that all of this takes place within, and that everything exists in the human imagination. Okay? So let me share with you that dream from the scripture and let you know what will happen to you after you would have had the virgin birth, after you would have had the resurrection, and after your son will appear to you in a dream and call you Father, and you come to understand why it is said that it's only the Father can reveal the Son and only the Son can reveal the Father. Because my brother and my sisters, it's really a great thing for you to be listening to me, and what I'm saying is resonating deeply with you, knowing that I will have awakened from the dream of life and come to my Christ consciousness, and you are that blessed to be a part of someone, especially a melanated one who have come to this level. It's really a joy and a pleasure to be sharing these kind of words with you. Now, I'm going to read to you from Isaiah 53, because Isaiah 53 was the experience I had in that dream, the 11th month, the 11th day. Okay, to be specific, I went to bed late on the 9th of the 10th of the 11th month, which would have break into 11/11, because it was at the breaking of the day just before I wake, where I wake out of the dream that I was having. Okay, that's why I say to you it's 11/11. Okay, so as I said before, the dream that the lady brought to me was me being arrested and being accused and so on. Okay, but for you to understand what I would have dreamt, I would definitely have to read Isaiah 53 for you. So let me read it now for you. It says, "Who hath believed our report? And to whom is the arm of the Lord revealed?" This thing can never be known by theory. It can only be known by experience, and many would not believe. But blessed are those who haven't seen but believe. And those of you who this message is really resonating with, it's really a blessing for you. And you, just by believing, would see many changes in your life just by believing this truth. Because truly, everything that I'm saying to you, it is the truth I'm telling you. For he shall go up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of dry ground. He hath no form nor comeliness, and when we shall see him, there is no beauty that we shall desire him. There's nothing particular about myself. There's nothing particular about you either. There's nothing special about anyone. Okay? And each and everyone in this world will have the experience. You will experience the birth from the skull. And you will have the experience of your son calling you father, which is humanity. As a child calling you father, and the Bible refers to that child that will call you father as David in the Bible, because David represents humanity. Okay, it says here, he is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And we hid, as it were, our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. My brother and my sisters, when you come to self-realization, you come to the truth, and you try to share the truth with others, all of these things will take place in your life. Okay? And you would realize that from a youth growing up, that you've been facing hardship, and you had to go through a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that I would have gone throughout my life that I wouldn't even want to go into detail at this time. But I'm saying to you that many times suicidal thoughts, all these things would have come. But all that was taking place in my life was to strengthen me, to bring me into my true calling. And the same thing will happen to you too. Surely he had borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. Yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. You see, when a man is called and chosen, vindicated, everything that the others all around the world would have gone through, that man would have had a taste of these things and can share his experience and say to you, if I can do it, you can do it too. And you can say, if I would have vibrated to the highest place of consciousness, you can vibrate to the highest place of consciousness too when you are ready. It's all of this experience is to give honor and praise to the higher self, and not to speak from ego or speak from theory, but to speak from divine intervention, speaking everything from your real experience. But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. It is true, going through these kind of experiences, that one will come to share with you in your infirmities, and willing to put even his life on the line to bring such a message of truth, such a message of self-realization to a people, knowing that he would face rejection, he would face condemnation, knowing that the whole church world, the whole religious world will go against him. And this is my experience I'm reading right here to you. And this is what I was facing in that dream. The 11:11. Okay? This was my 11:11 experience. But the very first 11:11 experience I would have had before, as I would have said to you, is the bird from the skull. And that is why I am putting the book together called The Secret Vagina. Now, in verse 6 here, it says, all we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way, and the Lord had laid on him the iniquity of us all. As I always teach you, that because we were born in amnesia, and the system has been set up in a way to have us to go astray, to look outside of ourselves and to believe in a power outside of ourselves. Many of us have been doing just that, feeding the ego self and just believing in what's been taught to us from our parents, our teachers, our pastors, and so on, and been led astray. But there's always one who would have a real genuine experience of the supernatural and come to tell you how to discover your supernatural self, how to discover your true self. That will point you to look no other place but to look inwardly to discover that your real identity is your divinity. And he's the one who would suffer many persecution, outwardly and inwardly too. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is dumb, so he opened not his mouth. And this was exactly the experience I was having when I was having that dream, when they took me and they were accusing me. And it was as if it was the police and the judge and the prosecutors and the accusers all came against me. And I knew deep within myself I had a power, but I refused to use that power. I decided to stay in silence. And that's why, my brother and my sisters, if you want to see the work of the true God within man, you have to learn to go into the silence. You have to learn to go into that place of meditation. That is why true prayer is having desire and meditation. So the silence is where you listen. When you're going through your tough times, my encouragement to you is to listen. Go into that place of silence, the place of quiet. It is known as your bedchamber or your closet in Matthew 6:6, where the Father resides in that secret place. This is where you have to make your request be made known. It says in verses 8, he was taken from prison and from judgment, and who shall declare his generation? For he was cut off out of the land of the living. For the transgression of my people was he stricken. Now, when you go through the experience of true awakening and true enlightenment, it's a death. And you have to cut yourself off from all that have been fed to you and from the system of the world and their influences. And you have to make yourself like a sacrificial lamb to be able to help your brothers and sisters to wake up from the dream of life. It says in verse 9, and he made his grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death, because he had done no violence, neither was any deceit in his mouth. Anyone who would listen to the message of self-realization would know that the message of self-realization is based on love. And we encourage nothing but the love energy. Not an energy of fear, not an energy of self-doubt, not an energy of self-righteousness. Now, when we look at religion, we see that everything is based on fear, judgment, condemnation, shame, and guilt. But this message of self-realization is only pointing you to look inwardly and to think positively and to embrace and love yourself so that you'll be able to face yourself, because the only one that you are actually hiding from is yourself, and your greatest friend is yourself, and your greatest enemy also is your friend. But you have to conquer your greatest fears first before you can discover your greatest friend is yourself. Verse 10 says, "Yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him. He hath put him to grief. When thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin." Sin is ignorance. The only fundamental sin that there is in this world is not knowing who you are. So this message is always to take you out of ignorance and point you to discover your true identity. He shall see his seed. He shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. This message will continue. It will prolong. It will go from generation to generation. And many, many, many years from now, another generation will rise up and call me blessed. And all those of you who have listened and subscribed to this truth, your children, your grandchildren, your great-great-grandchildren, they will call you blessed, because you will provide a way for them to follow. You leave a footprint also for them to follow. And this is what this is really all about. That is why only those who are ready for this truth will receive this truth, and those who are ready would believe everything that I'm saying, even though they are not the one who have had the experience. Something inside of them would resonate with them that this man is speaking the truth. He shall see of the travail of his soul, and shall be satisfied. By his knowledge shall many righteous servants justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities. My brother and my sisters, every experience that I've ever experienced in this life was to bring me to this point, to strengthen you, to build you, to stand with you. And I'm saying to you, you are blessed already. And all you have to do is believe what I am saying. For if thou canst believe, all things are possible to them that believe. It is said, unless ye believe that I am he, you shall die in your sin. And I'm pointing you to discover your I amness. I'm pointing you to discover your higher self. I'm pointing you to look inwardly. And that is why when you resonate with me, it is the divine in me, and the divine in you is coming to union. It's the true marriage. That's why, my brother, my sisters, today is a great day for me and a great day for you who are hearing this blessed message. Remember, it is for you to know the mysteries of the kingdom. It is not for everyone. And I think that is written in Matthew 13, where you say, how is it that you speak to them in parables, and to us you speak plainly? And the Christ says, it is because it is for you to know the mysteries of the kingdom. It is not for them. They're not ready. Okay, let me read the last verse, where it says here, therefore will I divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he had poured out his soul unto death, and he was numbered with the transgressors, and he bare the sin of many, and made intercession for the transgressors. My brother and my sisters, every time I make a video and I reach out to you, I'm doing all of that. And many people think that it is speaking of a man 2,000 years ago. But no, it is you who will come to discover that the Bible is a spiritual autobiography that must be interpreted psychologically. And when the Bible speaks about the eunuch, the Ethiopian eunuch in the book of Acts, that was reading this very scripture, and they asked him, of whom speaketh the prophet this? Is it of himself or another? Then they tell him the story of the Christ. They tell him the story of self-realization. They tell him the story of self-revelation. They tell him the story of how he must look inwardly to discover that his true identity is his divinity. And that is what this Bible been teaching you all the time, how to discover yourself. And you will have all the experiences that the Christ would have experienced. And you will realize that Christ is an experience, not a man 2,000 years ago. And you will realize that when they say put the name of a particular man, as when they tell you Jesus, you realize that it's an idol that they're putting to the highest state of consciousness that you can come to. And when you call on that name outside of yourself and disregard yourself, that you would be like those who crucify the Christ, who reject the Christ. And that is why at the end of my dream, the last person who was passing the verdict on me to be sentenced, it was a pastor in this country who was passing that last verdict. And I could have seen like what you call like a stamp that people normally use, and stamp probably like a letterhead and so on. That's what they were gonna use, like to brand me with. So my brother, my sisters, all of the experiences that you read of the Christ, it is about you. When you come to your higher self, you will have all of those experiences. And there are other experiences that I am waiting upon, like the dove that will come and kiss me all over, and many other more experiences. And when those experiences come, I'm going to share them with you. And to show you that someone who lives all the way in England could have had a dream, and then I come now and have the dream itself and have the experience and now sharing it with you. All of that is vindication. When a man is called, he must be authenticated. He must be vindicated. So with that being said, my brother, my sisters, I really, really feel good bringing this message to you and really testifying to you of what this dream was really all about, and the 11th month and the 11th day and so on. And to see that I would have already wrote that chapter in my book that I'm actually still writing, but I haven't gotten it to you because there's a book I was doing before that, and I'm gonna finish that book called Spiritual Recipe for Prosperous Living. Okay, and so I really, really feel good, and I really, really want to encourage those of you who've been really following this teaching that I've been teaching to stick with it. Don't give in. Trust your imagination. Everything's gonna work out for you, and you're gonna prove everything that I am teaching for your own self, and you pass it down to your generation. This thing does be passed down from generation to generation. So make use of it. So with that being said, my brother and my sister, I want to thank you very much. And I want to say to you, if this is the very first time that you're listening to me and what I'm saying is really resonating with you, and you haven't subscribed already, I'm encouraging you to subscribe, to like, to comment, and to share this video. But before I leave you on, I just want to remind you of this message I bring to you, that is a single eye message of self-realization, of which Matthew 6:22 says that if your eye be single, your whole body will be full of light. And had it been that a single eye opened within me, and my whole body was filled with light, I would have been here bringing this message to you, saying to you that when you have the experience, that you will feel that great and mighty shaking, and you will hear the unearthly wind. Then you will ascend like a fiery being, and you will come out of your skull and become invisible, become one with the wind, and realize that your body is a tomb in which the Christ is buried. You will understand the virgin birth, you will understand the resurrection, and you will tell your story. And that is why I always put my hand right above my crown chakra and say to you that when you have the experience, that you come to realize that it is the rising of the S-U-N in a S-O-N, and that it is the dawning of a new day in your life. For the sun, as in the S-U-N, parallels the human imagination, and the human imagination parallels the sun. For without the sun, there is no life and there is no light. And without the human imagination, there isn't anything made that was made. And you're told in Psalms 84:11 that the Lord thy God is a sun and a shield, and no good thing will he withhold from you. And truly the sun has never withheld any good thing from humanity, for the sun is what powers all of humanity and give all of humanity its energy. Also in Malachi chapter 4 and verses 2, you're told that the Son of righteousness shall arise in you with healing in his wings. And truly the sun has risen in me, and I'm bringing healing to all of humanity, encouraging each and everyone to use your mind power, which is your God power, your solar power, your creative power, which is actually the sexual power. Use that power to achieve your every desire. So with that being said, I want to say peace, love you all, I'm out.